You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
Some things happen fast, like a vacuum finding your lost earring. A dog reacting to the word walk. And settling up with friends on the PayPal app. Send and receive money in seconds. Access your balance to send, shop, pay bills, and more. Download the PayPal app to get started. An account with PayPal is required to send and receive money. A PayPal balance account is required to hold and use a balance.
If you've ever blasted synth beats from your boombox or burned CDs for your besties, this one's for you. As people get older, much like their music tastes, their health needs change. AG1 is the simple daily health drink designed to deliver over 75 essential daily nutrients and pre- and probiotics to support energy, digestion, and mood, so you can make the most out of every decade and dance break. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
I'm JJ Virgin, PhD dropout, sorry mom, turned 4-time New York Times bestselling author. Yes, I'm a certified nutrition specialist, fitness Hall of Famer, and I speak at health conferences and trainings around the globe. But I'm driven by my insatiable curiosity and love of science to keep asking questions, digging for answers, and sharing the information I uncover with as many people as I can. And that's why I created the Well Beyond 40 podcast, to synthesize and simplify the science of health into actionable strategies to help you thrive. In each episode, we'll talk about what's working in the world of wellness, from personalized nutrition and healing your metabolism to healthy aging and prescriptive fitness. Join me on the journey to better health so you can love how you look and feel right now and have the energy to play full out at 100. As I started getting into perimenopause, I noticed some things. Maybe you can relate. I noticed that all of a sudden I could not recover from my workouts, and I just couldn't work out as hard as I was used to doing. And at first I didn't connect the dots. And thankfully I went to a dentist because my gums were bleeding, and he said, oh, that's your estrogen's lowered. And boom, got the estrogen replaced, and I was back hitting at the gym. But I've always wanted to dig into this subject about working out, the musculoskeletal system, osteoporosis, and menopause. And so I was so excited to find Dr. Vonda Wright. I started following her on Instagram, and she has an amazing Instagram channel. And was so intrigued because there are so few female orthopedic sports surgeons out there. She is one of the unicorns out there. She's also an author, a speaker, a researcher, and an innovator. And her work really is the intersection of longevity, performance, and orthopedics. So we are going to be digging into a lot of very cool stuff today. Everything from how to avoid a fall, what her ideal exercise regimen is for this great formula that she gives for postmenopausal women, and much, much more. She has practiced in Lake Nona, which I was like, she lives literally an hour from me. So next time we do this, we'll do this in person. She's the founder and CEO of Precision Longevity and the host of Hot for Your Health. Her IG handle is at Dr. Vonda Wright. And we're going to put all of the show notes at jjvirgin.com/Dr. Vonda, Vonda. And I will be right back with Dr. Vonda. Stay with me.
There's no one way to practice yoga, and there's no one way to dress for it either. The new Groove Relaxed Cinch Pant from Lululemon changes the shape of your practice. Rediscover our Barely There Nulu fabric in a relaxed fit that lets you bend, breathe, and flow, with a cinchable hem for adjusting the shape throughout the day. It gives you more space to feel your best, on and off the mat. The new Groove Relaxed Cinch Pant, now available at lululemon.com.
This is a Bose moment. Your 10 boring blocks from home until the beat drops in Bose clarity. And the bass line transforms boring into maybe the best part of your day. Your life deserves music. Your music deserves Bose. Find your perfect product at Bose.com.
Dr. Vonda Wright, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You are a legend, my friend. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, stop it. I literally have been stalking you. So, because I was like, this woman is a total unicorn and will have the most unique, incredible perspective on menopause because you are one of the few orthopedic surgeons out there. Like I actually don't know any other female orthopedic surgeons. I mean, how many are there?
You know what? When I started training, and at the time there were 3%. So, try to find one of us. At this point, there's 6% attending surgeons. So, still try to find one of us. We're making progress, but we are not at critical mass, and I think that's important for women or anybody. But there's so much data, JJ, that female surgeons have better outcomes and of our surgeries and care. So it's an important public health thing, right?
Well, I was going to say female managers, female founders. We could go on and on. It is interesting, though, because when you look in the integrative and functional medicine space, it's about 70% female.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have another business called Mindshare Collaborative, and it's where a lot of the integrative health people get together to collaborate, and it's 70% female because of follow the statistics. So I just think it's interesting because, there's a lot that starts to shift as we go through perimenopause and beyond in terms of joint health. Yep. And I'm sure there's a lot you can see in your joints that could help you also with navigating menopause. So I was like, this is such a great perspective.
Yeah.
So that's where I would love to do is kind of look at this intersection and kind of go, what the heck does orthopedics and hormonal health have to do with one another?
Yeah. Well, almost everything, JJ, because what we know now, it seems like we've been talking about this forever. People like you and I who talk about this all the time. But the fact of the matter is, there are still women, in Monday, when they came into my clinic, I said, has anyone ever talked to you about your hormones? And they're like, no, what's that? Right? So there seems in the little ecosystem we have, everybody's talking about it. But the fact of the matter is, in the country, nobody is talking about it. And only 7% of all women in the country are being prescribed hormone replacement therapy. So.
Really?
Yes, 7%. So.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. But when you ask me the question, what do hormones and the musculoskeletal system have to do with each other, and I say everything, it's because every sub-tissue type of the musculoskeletal system, right? All musculoskeletal tissues come from the same type of stem cell and then just differentiate, whether it's bone, muscle, cartilage, fat. They all have common origins and they all have estrogen receptors. So every month, when our hormones fluctuate, our musculoskeletal system is affected. That's one of the reasons why young women have most of the ACL ruptures. It's why we see performance changes at different times in the month according to a woman's cycle. But when we get to the time of our lives that I'm in, where estrogen walked out the door, I'm so far postmenopausal, I can't even remember, but our estrogen receptors on our musculoskeletal system are left bare. And I say this realizing that people have a really hard time with the perimenopause symptoms of hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog. But in general, those things will diminish with time. But for the musculoskeletal system, if we don't get in front of loss of muscle mass, loss of bone density, loss of our cartilage, chronic inflammation that causes disease, those are devastating and life-changing. But here's the deal, mostly preventable if we just knew.
I love that so much because I just actually told this story on Sean Stevenson's podcast. And I said, I set all these big goals for 50. I was telling you offline about my 50th birthday party with Dr. Sarah Gottfried and Dr. Anna Kaveka. Yeah. And then I just kind of started coasting. I was like coasting along, not thinking about these things. And I started to really look at the statistics for muscle loss as we age. I think, the up to 1% per decade or per year each decade after 30 is scary, but the loss of strength and power is scarier. And so I started kind of saying, Vonda, oh, I'm cool. I go to the gym, I lift, but I wasn't challenging myself. I was sort of like, eh. And then I kind of went, wait a minute, stop it. These statistics are based on the average person who's doing some walking and kind of calling it in after this. We don't have to go this way. So knowing what could happen, what's happening behind the scenes? Why are we losing that muscle? Why could we be losing bone? Let's paint the picture of why it's happening, and then I'd love to go into how we make ourselves not that statistic.
Yeah, so if we want to talk about, maybe we can start by talking about inflammation and the two things that people show up in my clinic most frequently about, because muscle and bone loss are silent until you know it's happening. Women come in with, the ever popular frozen shoulder, and this was my primary symptom at 47, total body pain such that I could barely get out of bed. And I'd always been an athlete. So I'm usually in control of my body, and I'm like, what is going on? Well, the chronic inflammation that happens when estrogen walks out the door is because estradiol is an incredible anti-inflammatory and works to inhibit the release of cytokines like, things like we read about tumor necrosis factor alpha, right? All the inflammatory things, estrogen is a damper to that. So without it, our body becomes grossly inflamed. The same kind of reaction happens in our muscles. Our muscles contain estrogen receptors, and without estrogen sitting in them, there is increased loss of the normal age-related loss of type 2 muscle fibers, and which is our power fibers, our explosive, which keeps us able to jump out of the way of charging lions, traffic, and whatever. So there's that. With age, it's one of the sine qua non of aging, but without estrogen, it's worse, right? And without muscle mass, then we become metabolically less healthy because muscle is critical in glucose metabolism. We also, muscle is just so important. Without estrogen in place, we stop replicating muscle-derived stem cells. Now, something that isn't widely known is for most of my career at the University of Pittsburgh, I actually participated in a muscle stem cell lab. At the time, we just called them muscle-derived stem cells. Now they're called satellite cells, which sit in the basement, the lower basement membrane, if you will, of muscle. But if you want to rejuvenate your health and rejuvenate muscle stem cells, all you have to do is contract skeletal muscle. So everything you've been teaching people for years is not only about physique and being strong, but it's actually about the longevity of your stem cells. And without estrogen, that stops. But probably, I'm a bone doctor. One of the most critical factors that I talk about is that without the regulation of estrogen, we rapidly lose our bone density. And bone is not just the structural thing that holds us up. So I have this on my desk. This is a femur. Here's my bone example. I know, I'm just that geeky. But we just think of it as that scary Halloween skeleton thing. But actually, bone is a master communicator. Bone communicates with muscle. They work together in one ecosystem. And you don't know you're losing your bone at a rate of 20% over your perimenopause until what happens? We fall and break. We start shrinking. Our bones start aching. So, I could go on and on. But these are just examples of how critical estrogen sitting in the receptors are.
Yeah, I actually remember being at the gym and going, what the heck? Just like you said, you were getting out of bed in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is going on? Because I just couldn't recover.
Yeah.
Like doing the same workout, I'm like, I can't do this. What is it? And thankfully, because I didn't put it together, and then I went over to my dentist, and I for a cleaning, I go, man, every time I floss, my gums bleed, and they're like, oh, low estrogen. I'm like, oh,
what? They knew that?
Yep.
I'm so proud of them.
I know, and it was a guy too. I'm like, he's right. I mean, very, very impressive.
Yeah.
However, I did tear my ACL when I was 17 and then
Yes.
completely severed it at 22.
Oh, no.
So
Yeah.
when you said the ACL thing, I'm like, yup.
Yep, got that.
Yep. And so I think most women don't think about estrogen as so important for building muscle. Like you just don't, you think testosterone, and you don't realize that, nope, not for women. For women, you got to have that estrogen in there. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I'd love to just back up on the bone density.
Yeah.
One of my theories is if we've got good muscles, if we're building muscle, that bone density is a lagging indicator of not having enough muscle mass. And in a perfect world, I'd love to see it that we are starting to look at DEXA scans when girls are in their teens.
Yeah.
What are you recommending for looking at this and tracking skeletal muscle mass and bone density and when, et cetera?
What I'm seeing, JG, my day job is as an orthopedic sports doctor. So I've worked with active young women my entire career. And I was the head doctor for several Division I schools. And so what we see is that let's just talk about bone. So just a little biology, we stop laying down bone, meaning building bone, around 30-ish, right? So after 30, we're either maintaining or when we lose our estrogen, losing, unless we're really active in trying to rebuild. But that's assuming we build bone in the first place. Because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was always an athlete. I had irregular periods. My fat was very low. And so I may have gone 6 months without a period. And because I was a dancer, I'm like, okay, I'm getting away with something. What I was doing was not laying down enough bone. So I get many women now who come to me. I had a 28-year-old who broke her hip, not because she was doing crazy stuff, but because she had never laid down enough bone. And so
oh my gosh.
Yes, when we look at studies of college women, because now at this point we do DEXA scans on freshmen coming into collegiate programs, we find a lot of young women who just never laid down bone because we've been fed the lie that women have to be teeny tiny at all times, right? And starve ourselves and not eat enough protein. So we must lay down bone across our youth. So when do I think that we should get DEXA scans? I'm hesitating because I get so passionate about it. DEXA scans as a baseline? Well, if your mother is shrinking, if your grandmother broke her hip, if you have taken prednisone because of another illness your whole life, if you ever smoked, if you have fallen and fractured, now's the time. Whether that's 30, definitely by 40. I think we need baseline DEXA scans by 40. But, scientists will tell us that DEXA scans are not the end-all be-all because the other factor that goes into fracture, which is why one of the reasons we care about bones, is their resilience, their ability to resist stress and strain and not falling. So it's not only building bone in our youth, figuring out our bone status and being very aggressive about that. Just because insurance won't pay for a DEXA scan before we're 65, that's not the final answer.
Which is obscene, by the way. Like, that's obscene.
Right. What are we trying to figure out then when it's nearly too late to do anything about it?
Eggs scrambled at that point, right?
Yes, you're so right. We need to do it early. We can buy DEXA scans. Some gyms, some imaging places will do it for as low as $99. So you just have to, I say, people are like, but I have health insurance. Why should I pay? Because you should. And number two, even if we can't afford it, let's save our $7.18 coffee money a day, which, expensive gourmet coffees. Just save it for 10 days and go save your bones. So that's me being very let's get in front of this, people, because bones are silent until they break and then they scream at you. And it's one of the main reasons women die.
I know the statistics on it. I'd love you to share those are just crazy.
So 1 in 2 women, 50%, one of us, you or I, will have...
Well, I don't think you or I are going to be...
Not I, but if there are 2 women in a room and they're looking at each other, this is what they used to say to us in medical school. Look to your right, look to your left, one of you will not be finishing. Look to your right, look to your left. One of you will have a fracture. When you fall and break a hip, like this bone I just happen to have in my office, when you break your femoral neck, 50% of the time you will not return to pre-fall function, meaning you won't be living in the house where you raised your kids. You won't be driving a car, all the things we value in our independence. And here's the kicker. 30% of the time we die from our fractures. Here's a real story that was told to me yesterday. I am still taking trauma call. I don't, at this late age in my career, you'd think I'd be done, but I'm not. So this is how it happens. There was a woman who came in who was 89 years old, is 89 years old, and she was independent. Her son, who's in his high 60s, almost 70, lives in New York. She lives here in Florida. And she, independent, drives her car, goes to social clubs, drives her girlfriends around because they don't have licenses and she does. She fell, and she was so fragile without knowing it. She broke her pelvis in 4 places. She tried to break her fall, held out her arm, broke her shoulder, broke her scapula, broke multiple ribs. She is in such bad shape from fractures. And she's in the ICU that, because it's so painful when you break bones, that her family decided, because there was so little that could be done with that many fractures, that despite her previous independence, they sent her to hospice to recover. This is not an atypical story. We go along until we break something, and then 30% of us die. And so if we can get in front of this at a young age, not only by all the things I'm sure we'll talk about, how to build bone, but how to build muscle as the supporting agent, we do not have to become frail old women dying from tragic stories like I just told you. And that's not hyperbole. I don't want your audience to think I just came up with this wild story. That is every single day in every emergency room in this country.
Oh. Yes, so let's do our part to stop that. And when I look at it, part of it is, of course, improving bone mineral density, but I think a lot of the things that you would do to improve muscle are going to, well, everything that you do to improve muscle improves bone mineral density. Like I'm a big fan of do squats, do overhead presses, load the spine, load the hips, and I love rucking. But when I think about the risk for falling, and you think about, okay, as we're aging, we're losing fast twitch muscle fiber, we're losing that agility, that power. Mm-hmm. It makes me think we have to design our training programs very differently to really focus on training. I always say, you don't train to get better at training. You train to get better so that when you're out in the wild, that's right, and you have to move quickly or do something or catch yourself, you can. So what are your recommendations for building muscle when you're, menopausal?
Yeah.
Postmenopausal.
Postmenopausal. So, there's 2 areas I'd like to cover with that. If people have listened to me at all, they know that I like people to live as heavy as they can. Now, if you are just starting out, you've never picked up anything but a little pink weight and don't really feel confident, it is totally okay to start with body weight. Get the motions down. Move your body through the squat motion, the deadlift motion, the bench press motion, just so you feel confident in the movement patterns. But as you become more confident, it is important to provide enough stimulus to your muscles that they will actually change, because our bodies, why is that necessary? Our bodies are magicians at maintaining stability, homeostasis, right? We want to be in this stress-free plane. So if you're lifting too light and doing 20, 30 reps, and it's just like a piece of cake to you, it's a piece of cake to your muscles. You're not going to build any new muscles or strength. So I commonly recommend for 4 compound motions. Squats is a compound motion. Deadlift, it means it's multiple joints, including your core. Bench press, some kind of pull. Lifting as heavy as you can so that 4 reps leads you not to exhaustion, but near exhaustion. You should only have 1 or 2 reps left in you, because that's when we will stimulate muscle protein synthesis. that's when we will cause the replication of our stem cells, which is what we want. And frankly, it doesn't take you forever. So my mantra is lift heavy.
And go home.
And go home. It doesn't take that long.
I know those 30, like, first of all, I was a group exercise teacher, then a personal trainer. I mean, and I actually was a group exercise teacher when all this was first starting back in the day.
Yes.
And then one of the first personal trainers. But back then you'd be in these classes to feel the burn, and we would do like 100 repetitions of something stupid, like.
Well, and that's what it took to build up enough lactic acid to feel the burn, right? But you know what, to that, I realized the way we are training now has changed since, I began working out. I used to have exercise videos in my living room and just do what you're talking about. Thank God people were getting the country moving, because everything is better than sitting on a couch and me coming out of this room. Everything is better than that.
Everything is better than that. And I look at this and go, all right, for me, my easiest definition of exercise is that you do more than what you're used to, so your body has to adapt. So that means, and I view aging as a snowball rolling down a hill. And I think, all right, like, it'll pick up speed unless you do more than what you're used to, in which case you can flatten it out. So that's what we've got to do, is be the role models. And I am kind of obsessed with some of this stuff on Instagram now, where they have, women in their 70s and 80s, and they have that gymnastic grandma at 90.
I know, the green jumpsuit. I know, I've seen it. Yeah.
It's amazing stuff. So, I mean, what do you say to the person who is afraid of lifting weights? They're afraid of, what I'm going to say, they're afraid of getting big. Like, first thing I heard 40 years ago, still hearing it today. I'm afraid of getting big. What do you say?
I have a not so nice thing to say, and then I have a real thing to say. The not so nice thing to say is, listen, with 70% of our country doing no mobility every day and 40% being obese, people are getting big anyway, but in the wrong way. But if we're specifically thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want to be like a competition bodybuilder, I am going to say, don't worry, my friends. That is very specific. That takes decades of hard work. The most you're going to see is more toned muscles, clothes that fit you better, more strength. You are not going to become bulky unless you train to become bulky. It will never happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. 40 years of doing this, and the only time I've seen people get bigger is when they quit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right.
You slather on the fat butter, and everybody gets bigger.
It's muscles, metabolic Spanx holds everything in tighter.
I love
that. What about mobility, working out, and cognitive function?
Yeah, many years ago, I did a series of studies early in my career, really answering the question: can we be healthy, vital, active, joyful forever, right? And so, because what we know from most medical research that looks at aging is looking at what the population is doing. And what do we know about our population? Just what I said, 70% of them are sedentary. So I did not accept that we had to age in the declining way that sedentary people do. So my whole series of studies were on active people. They weren't pro athletes, but they committed every day. One of the studies was on performance, 2 on bone, 1 on muscle, that now has a life of its own. But the brain study took 5 years, because I matched the subjects in my study for everything with the sedentary person, their education, their occupation, everything. The only thing that was different is how much mobility they invested in their bodies. And you know what we found? I had a tool called the Impact test that was developed at the University of Pittsburgh that measures frontal lobes, the executive function of our brain. And we use that test to compare sedentary people to chronically active people like you and me. And what we found is that 3 out of the 5 executive functions, those functions that make us human beings, were preserved in chronic exercisers compared to sedentary people. So speed of thinking, complex problem solving, important things in our aging and longevity, exercise. It's exercise. And we know that there's this, in following up on that study, we're looking at some of the reasons why, and a group out of Emory showed that a contraction of our skeletal muscle causes transcription or the production of a protein that goes directly to the brain that affects memory. So you think you're out there working on your lean muscle mass, and what you're doing is working on your brain function.
Yeah, my son, when he was 16, was hit by a car and literally left for dead in the street.
Oh my God.
Severe traumatic brain injury. I mean, 13 fractures, crushed heel,
Oh my
torn
God.
aorta. The doctors literally told us to let him go, which
Wow.
we didn't listen. However, we brought him back from a severe traumatic brain injury, and what we used to bring him back from this severe traumatic brain injury is exercise. Like,
Oh my
we did a
God.
lot of stuff, HBOT,
Yeah.
neurofeedback, but the biggest needle mover of all has been exercise.
That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, they said he'd never walk again because of the crushed heel. They said he'd never wake up, on and on and on. But I tend to not listen to authority well. You mentioned, too, I had no idea about these studies. You also mentioned something about the muscle piece of this. What did you learn there?
Yeah, so there's this picture on the internet that it has a life of its own. If I describe it, you may.
I was trying to find it. Can we link to
Yeah.
it in the show notes?
Of course, so what we did was there's this study called the Health ABC, which followed a cohort of aging people, 70 for 10 years, and looked at a variety of things. But one of the things they did was look at their lean muscle mass. And what they found in sedentary people is that we lose our muscle architecture, we lose our volume, we become grossly infiltrated with fat, like marbling. And I didn't believe that because I see examples of my 85-year-old father whose muscles are still as good as they were when he was 60 because he's a chronic exerciser. So what I did was a study that did MRIs. Lots of people have MRIs. They know you just lay there and let the magnet work. And I took slices of the quads. And so this picture that I'm describing, at the top there's a picture of a 40-year-old slice of the quads. Above are gorgeous quadriceps. In the bottom are amazing hamstrings. The femur's right in the middle. It looks like a flank steak. There is no intramuscular adipose tissue. Gorgeous. The center picture is a slice of a sedentary person who's been sitting around for 35 years. And what you have is raggedy muscle. You have gross infiltration of fat and a thick rind, 2 or 3 inches of peripheral fat. The final picture is a 70-year-old triathlete. Most of my athletes were runners and triathletes just because of where I was. You would have thought that the third 74-year-old picture's muscles was just another slice of the 40-year-old's. Gorgeous muscle architecture, very little peripheral fat, no fatty infiltration, still a flank steak, had not turned into a rump roast. This picture has been used all over the internet. I should have named it because it has a light. I should call it like the Betty picture or something. But what it showed was that we are in control of our futures when we invest every day in a purposeful way. It just doesn't happen by hoping and praying, but by thoughtfully investing in our mobility. Even mere mortal athletes like me can retain our lean muscle mass. And in doing so, preserve our longevity because muscle is just so important in that process.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come experience the beauty that awaits in Scotland. The sweep of wild coastlines, quiet lochs, and untamed landscapes. Fresh cuisine that feels rooted in the land. Come experience the kind of stillness that stays with you long after you leave. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
When you look at all those 12 hallmarks of aging, and here's the thing, all my training was as an exercise physiologist, and I felt like the peasant of the health world. until a couple of years ago. And I was always lugging people to Gold's Gym in Venice and going, lift weights. I mean, this was there 35 years ago. And now I'm like, I'm so smart.
You're the queen. Yes.
Finally, it's come around, but the exercise scientists are like, we're in.
Yes, that's right.
And while I know that anything's better than nothing, the one thing that I do believe that as we age, we really want to dial in a great exercise prescription that's dealing with the loss of power and strength and dealing with issues with a balance and working on VO2 max, which we haven't even talked about. So I would love for you to share because you said move every day, like what would be your way to take someone who, and I think most people that I talk to, it seems like they're walking and maybe doing a little yoga or Pilates.
Oh, how about that?
What would you do with Sarah who's doing that?
So the framework that I use, because people need cues to remember what to do, I call it facing your future. I've written about it in just a framework, written about it in some of my books, but facing a future, how midlife people should prescribe movement is flexibility and mobility. F. A is aerobic, and I will outline each one of these briefly. C, FAC, is carry a load. I purposely do not specify whether you have to throw on plates on a bar or whether we're using, because there's lots of ways. And then E is equilibrium and agility. So let me briefly go through these four so people know, what are the parts of the recipe? Flexibility and mobility. Unless we keep our muscles out to a decent length and our tendons unbrittle, unless we keep our joints capable of moving through a full range of motion, we are more prone to injury going forward. And we'll start shuffling along like old people. Who wants that? I want to walk with a full stride. I think that's where Pilates and yoga come in. They are the icing on the cake for flexibility, for mobility, just keeping everything fluid. F. A, aerobic. There are three ways I like to approach this. I used to burn it out 6-7 days a week, getting my heart rate up to 186. I could predictably be injured every 3 weeks. Same injuries. My mechanics aren't perfect. But what we know now is 3 hours a week of base training, which can be a brisk walk, even so far as micro bursts of activity. There's great data that shows just run up the stairs a few times a day adds to the picture. So base training at low heart rate, and we can get into zone 2. I happen to have a lab here. I'm capable of measuring lactate threshold, but it's 181 minus your age, so around 120, 130 if you're metabolically healthy. So base training, add on top of that, and the way I do this is after I've walked briskly or been on a treadmill or a bike for 45 minutes to an hour at a low heart rate, if I'm on a treadmill, I sprint twice a week. I punch it up to 11, and I go as fast as my little legs, I'm a short person, can carry me without flying off the treadmill, but only for 30 seconds. And then I completely recover. It takes me 2 to 3 minutes to recover my heart rate back down to about 130, which is my base. I do that 4 times. That is what stimulates the neuromuscular pathways, which keep stimulating my cardiovascular system. That is what's going to stimulate synthesis of satellite stem cells. So we've got base training, brisk walking, sprinting, and I don't want people to be freaked out by that word. It's just going as fast as you can. And then if we really want to layer on the fitness, which I've added this year, is we train for VO2 max once a week. So just briefly, you're the scientist. You can go into this you're the exercise scientist, but briefly, VO2 max is a measure of oxygen exchange from across our lungs, from arterial to venous. And how efficient we are at that is a reflection of our cardiovascular fitness. So the reason that's important with aging, not in elite fitness, that's a whole different subject, but with aging is there's an independence line when it comes to VO2 max. For women at 16, the measure of, it's a 3-digit label, milliliters for oxygen over time. 16 for men is 18. Here's how we use that. We never want to get to that line because that means we can't live independently anymore. We're too cardiovascularly frail. I'm going to use my numbers. So as an example, if we do not work to maintain our VO2 max level, if we're too sedentary, we drop our VO2 max 10% a decade. So my current VO2 max is 45. Well, it was when I was 50. I almost need to do it again. When I was 50, it was 45. So if I lose 10% by the time I'm 60 in a few years, I'm at 40. At 70, I'll be at 35. At 80, I'll be at 30. I am never hitting the loss of independent line. But if I haven't worked out enough across my lifespan, or there's a reason why I'm metabolically inefficient and I start out at 50 at 25, 10% a year, I'm going to hit my loss of independence line. So the way you can maintain VO2 max, maybe even increase it, although I'm not sure about that, is to do a VO2 max workout, which is 3 to 4 minutes as fast as you can go. Recover for 3 to 4 minutes. So it's slower than sprinting, but it's hard, right? It's hard. You don't want to have to do that more than once a week. So yeah. So flexibility, aerobic, carry a load, lift heavy enough to stimulate your muscles, right? So I usually prescribe this in the power moves: push pull upper body, push pull lower body. So bench press, pull up ish. I'm not good at pull ups, but pull up ish. Push pull on the legs is squat, deadlift. 4 reps, 4 sets. And then for the accessory moves, of which there's hundreds.
4 sets. How many times a week?
Minimum of 2. I do it 4.
Okay.
But start low. Just get it done a couple times until it's part of your life. And then the accessory moves that support the big power lifts, the single joint moves for the upper body. For instance, if you're bench pressing, accessories are biceps, triceps, lats, delts, rows. I usually tell people to do 8 for 3 or 4 sets. Because listen, JJ, I'm just trying to keep it simple enough that people will do it.
I'm right there with you. I prioritize big functional moves. I always, say, think about what you need to do in life.
Yes, you're so right.
You must get up off the toilet.
Right. Oh, you're so right. Mm-hmm.
You got to put stuff in the overhead. You got to pick something up off the floor. Let's do it. Yeah. And don't you agree? Because I'll hear people now, I think it was such an opportunity to blow my knee out at 17 doing point ballet, which the biggest joke is I did gymnastics, acrobatics, and point ballet. I am 6 feet tall.
Oh, good for you.
And my son was doing tricking and parkour. He's 6'2", so he pulled his tibial tuberosity off his tibia.
Oh, wow.
So, we're just like wrong sports for us, play some basketball. But because of that, my knee basically, I had 5 different surgeries until finally there. It kept going, have a replacement. I waited till 52, but it ached. It always hurt. Yeah. And the way that, I remember when I walked into the office for this surgery, they go, we don't even know how you're walking. I go, because it's so strong. Yeah. And I trained for the surgery. And the big thing I think that needs to be out there is people will avoid things because of an injury and say why they can't do something. And actually, I think that's why you need to.
I agree.
So you validate that because you're the orthopedic surgeon. So.
Well, and to your point, I've heard every excuse in the book, and a very common excuse is I hurt my right knee, to which I say you've got 2 arms, a core, and a left knee. Let's go, right? Yeah. You've got all the other body parts. But I don't want to forget to tell people on this how to exercise. I know I've been going on forever. We talked about flexibility, aerobic, weightlifting, carrying a load. Equilibrium and agility. We need to train our foot speed. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up too quickly from my desk, and here's my work bag sitting here, and I go to trip over it, but because I work on this, I just hop right over it. But, falling is one of the main reasons for fracture. So I have the privilege of working with an amazing speed coach. Her real job is training collegiate and pro track and field athletes. But she has taught me and the group of women that I commonly work with foot speed exercises, pogos, jumping over ladders, jumping it back and forth so that we don't get old and slow, right? Slow is not how we have to age.
And what's great about those things, like everything you just listed here, you could easily do at home. You can easily do some side jumps, some air squats into a jump. You know, all of these things are easy enough to do. And I literally just got a little stress fracture in my foot because I got way too zealous on my Norwegian 4x4s using up, downs, and squat jumps. And I was like, you know what, just stop it.
Oh,
right?
I'm so sorry to hear it.
But you know, it backed it right off. It's fine. But a lot of this stuff is easy enough to do at home. You can do a lot of that agility training at home, and you can. I mean, if done correctly, it's great interval training too.
Yep, exactly right. No, I agree with you.
I'd love to go back to VO2 max just briefly because you mentioned losing, and I just saw the statistics that said 5 to 15% a decade starting at age 30. It sure seems like at age 30, people are all concerned about age 50. Like age 30 seems to be that like, what the heck just happened here? But as far as I can tell, though, from what I was reading, it was very variable because of it could be massively shifted by, exercise.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if we can really offset that and have it be 5% a decade as opposed to 10 to 15%. It seems like we should be able to.
I think so. I think our bodies are so responsive to the positive stress we put on it. I think as a population, we just don't stress it enough. Now that we're no longer agrarian, we don't farm, we're not shepherds. We are so digitalized that it doesn't take a lot of energy on a typical day. So, when I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and it was a typical day to not sit down from morning to dusk, but now it's a typical day for most of us to sit down from morning to dusk and just spend an hour a day moving around. So it's kind of a flipped scenario the way we're living today.
Yeah, and that study that just came out that said if you're working out 30 minutes 3 times a week and sitting the rest of the time, you've erased it. Yeah. So I always start with just getting people to get their steps up first because I want to make sure they actually have the activity in.
Is there a target goal? It seems to be a moving target. Is there something you recommend to people?
From what I've seen in the research, it's everything from 8,600 to 12,000. Yeah. And what I do is people, I literally have someone I'm working with right now who has over 200 pounds to lose. Uh-huh. And so he was doing about 2,500 steps a day. Mm-hmm. And when I started to look in the research, I'm like, well, what's the average? It turns out the average is 2,500 to 4,000 steps a day. Oh. Now, I always like to just start and go, okay, well, if you're hitting 4,000, let's go to 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then let's go to 6. Let's just keep raising the floor. You can always do more, go crazy. Yeah. And then once we get up there, I really want the floor to be minimally 8. And I have a funny story. The other day, I was at a hotel, I was at a meeting, and while I was trying to stand up the whole time, it was like an all-day meeting. And I get to the hotel where we're staying, and I've got 6,500 steps. And I'm like, we're on the 16th floor, but I go, honey, I cannot, I have to get my steps. Because I've committed that 8,000 is my absolute floor. I have to get my steps. You understand? Yeah, you're like, of course. And so I said, so let's take the stairs. He goes, I'm not taking the stairs. And I actually was doing a little IG video and calling him out on that, and he stopped taping. He's like, honey. Anyway, so I take the stairs up. Well, I get up the stairs, and it counts for 300 steps.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, what a ripoff, Aura Ring. Yeah. So then I'm like, honey, I have to go outside. So he came out with me. We had to go walk until I got the steps. But, I like to focus on one thing at a time and get that thing dialed. And I think first thing is just get up. Get up. And then we can start those exercises. I think the literature on all these exercise doses is great because who can't do, 10 air squats in 1 hour and then maybe in 2 hours do 10 push-ups and it's doable stuff.
Little bursts. Yeah.
You just got to get it into your schedule.
Yeah. And in terms, I love your commitment to your steps. In fact, I even told my husband, I just did this. After long days, we're just exhausted. So we just kind of sit there for a minute and, watch something fun like Wrexham or some Netflix thing. But I'm like, okay, too much sitting. I just bought us a walking platform that I'm going to put in the living room.
Yay, I've got one right here. I've got one right next to me because this is a stand-up desk and I've got a walking platform and then I got rucking vests. So, because, I have 5 and 6 pound dogs. You take the 5 and 6 pound dogs out for a walk, nothing is happening. Like you probably walked 100 steps. It's like walk, walk, pee, walk, walk, sniff, walk. And then we'll drop them back in the house and go for it. But I got us rucking vests. I've got the walking pad. Because he wasn't paying attention to it either. But he'll do what I recommend. He just won't usually initiate it. But once it's in his program, he does.
Review, it'll do, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Now, you've got a couple things going. Well, you got a lot of stuff going on. So I didn't realize you were still full-time day job and working some of the trauma stuff. And then you've also got your podcast.
Yes.
And you also are going to be gifting an ebook, Strong and Courageous, the No Excuse Guide to Thrive in Midlife and Perimenopause and Beyond book, which we will put at jjvirgin.com/Dr. Vonda, Vonda, for everybody listening, DrVonda. And where else can people find you? Because you've got I saw you on Instagram and started stalking you.
Well, I love that because I would have never gotten to meet you if it weren't for Instagram. So I'm so thankful for that opportunity. But I post every day on Instagram. I only have so much time. That is the main place you'll find me. But I think for deeper dives, I have a YouTube channel by the same name, Dr. Vonda Wright. I do a podcast called Hot for Your Health and some interesting people on there. And we just have a book coming out in 25. So as soon as that's ready for
nice.
I'm going to let you know about it. I'm very excited.
I would love to. I love book launches. Fun. All right. Well, thank you. We'll put all of that at jjvirgin.com/Dr. Vonda. And I'm sure next time we have to do this in person since you're only an hour-ish
I didn't realize. I will come to Tampa.
I didn't either. I saw it and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, no, what the heck are we doing?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Be sure to join me next time for more tools, tips, and techniques you can incorporate into everyday life to ensure you look and feel great and are built to last. Check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and my website, jjvirgin.com, and make sure to follow my podcast at subscribe2jj.com so you don't miss a single episode. And hey, if you're loving what you hear, don't forget to leave a review. Your reviews make a big difference in helping me reach more incredible women just like you to spread the word about aging powerfully after 40. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Hey, JJ here, and just a reminder that the Well Beyond 40 podcast offers health, wellness, fitness, and nutritional information that's designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. You should not rely on this information as a substitute for, nor does it replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or questions about your health, you should always consult with a physician or other healthcare professional. Make sure that you do not disregard, avoid, or delay obtaining medical or health-related advice from your healthcare professional because of something you may have heard on the show or read in our show notes. The use of any information provided on the show is solely at your own risk.